Okay, perfect. So today we're talking about pet first aid. Huge, super important topic that everybody with a pet should understand some of these things here. And thank you again, David, for joining us to kind of cover these topics. It's always a pleasure to have you. So, kind of starting at the highest level that we possibly can here, what's kind of one of the first things if there is an emergency situation? How do we determine if there's an emergency situation? What's kind of the first thing to keep in mind, step one, when it comes to looking at pet first aid?
Great topic, Julia. Thank you. Thanks for teeing this up, and thanks for letting me talk about it. It's actually one of my favorite things to talk about. If veterinarians can be boring about one thing at cocktail parties, typically it's first aid for me. But luckily, it's also the thing that a lot of people find most interesting. This harkens back both to my emergency veterinarian days. Also, as it so happens, I have an adult son who is a paramedic and a search and rescue specialist up in Montana. And so he and I get to geek out about the differences between humans and animals all the time. First things first, what's an emergency? Emergency is anything that's happening that could reasonably pose an imminent danger to life or limb, meaning permanent disfigurement or the actual life of the animal. And so that falls into a huge range of topics. And also, I would say in the veterinary world, it also is determined somewhat by what you have access to. So if you're way rural, an hour away from the closest veterinary clinic, first aid can mean a whole lot of things, all the way to a pretty deep intervention. You know, of course, if you're like me and there's a veterinary clinic right around the corner, then during the day, it's a pretty easy stretch. And then lastly, if you are if it's nighttime or if it's on the weekends and your regular veterinarian's not open, do you have access to an emergency or urgent care facility, veterinary facility? And those just vary. They're actually becoming much more popular, much more common now. So hopefully it is. And then lastly, of course, our well-groomed pet caretakers and groomers and care staff all are pretty well knowledgeable about where you can go in the case of an emergency. So if you want to reach back out to that resource, it's always a good place to know where you can take your pet if you're in a scary position.